All right, good morning, everyone. Today we're going to be looking at graphing quadratics in standard form. It's a little bit different than vertex form in the sense that it's not as easy just to pull your vertex out. So we're going to kind of see how we deal with a quadratic in this form. But standard form, as you can see, is given by y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. I kind of color coded those coefficients, like a is is the number in front of your x squared, b is the number or coefficient in front of your x, and then c is your constant or just your number part that's added or subtracted at the end. So the first thing we need to kind of be able to do when we're given a quadratic in this form is figure out our coefficients, or our a, b, and c, because depending on what we're doing with these, you need to be able to pull out these coefficients. So we're going to be finding the axis of symmetry, but if you remember quadratic formula, we'll eventually be looking at that. That is, if you remember quadratic formula, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. If that sounds familiar at all, you definitely did that in Algebra 1. But let's look at this example. So they just ask us to figure out what are a, b, and c. So kind of using that as a template, remember, your a is your number in front of your coefficient, so that would be 3. Your b is your number in front of your x, and just be careful of your sign. Since it's a minus, that's like a negative 5. So if it's a minus in the problem, make sure you put that negative when you pull it out. That's a common mistake to make. And then lastly, our c is just our constant that's added at the end. So how about you guys give this next example a try? What would your a be? What would your b be? And what would your c be from this quadratic in standard form? All right, so if you try that, you should have got that. Your a is -2, like your first coefficient. Your b is plus, so it's +5. And then your constants is -2 at the end there. So this should be kind of, you probably have done this before, and this really shouldn't be too bad, but this is like, I mean, it's going to be very important you do this step right in these problems, because if you have the wrong a, b, and c, I mean, you're going to mess up anything else you're doing with these coefficients. The second thing we're going to look at in this video is, if you read what I said here, I said it's not as easy to find the vertex of a quadratic in standard form, but we can find the axis of symmetry using a pretty simple formula. So if you remember, the axis of symmetry really is the first part of your vertex. So we can find this pretty easily in standard form by using this formula: x equals -b over 2a. So notice we just use the a and the b. We're not going to mess with our c. So let's look at an example with this. So like I said, the first thing you should do, and you can write it down if you want to, or you don't, but our a, oops, let me kind of keep the color coding going, but our a in this problem would be 1, because keep in mind, if there's nothing in front of your x squared, there's really a 1 in front of it. Your b would be -4. What's in front of your x, and since it's a minus, then your constants would be a 3, but honestly, it's not really, we're not using it in this formula, so it's not really that relevant. So our formula is x equals, I'll change back to black, -b, so negative parentheses -4, all over 2 times a. So we just need to clean this up a little bit. So -4. So basically this top part, you just change your sign. So since it's a -4, you're going to have a +4 on top, and then multiply the bottom. 2 times 1 would be 2. Then just divide this in your calculator. So I mean, 4 divided by 2 would be 2. So that would be my axis of symmetry. But basically the idea with this formula is you change your sign of your b, then divide it by 2 times your a. So how about you give this second problem a try? So the first thing you want to do is figure out what your a and b would be. and then put it into that formula. See if you can get your axis of symmetry for the second one. All right, so if you gave that a try, you should have seen that your A is 2 and your B is 8. So if you want to put this in your formula, you're going to have negative B, so negative parentheses 8 over 2 parentheses, or over 2 times A, so 2 parentheses 2. So if you clean this up the top, I mean, negative 8 is just going to turn into a negative 8. And then 2 times 2 would be 4. And then just divide this. Negative 8 divided by 4 would be negative 2 for your final answer. And keep in mind, like, what we're finding with this axis of symmetry. Remember, that's the x value of your vertex. So like when we're graphing, this will go in the middle of our table. We can find our other x values, and then we can plug these back in to get our y values, like in using Desmos or a calculator. But that is it for this Ed puzzle. We'll be kind of looking at some examples after this. Then you'll have some to try.